Our final module begins now, Module 8, where we talk about diatonic chord progressions. So we've learned about chords and triads, the various types, what they sound like, how to make them on the fretboard and the keyboard. Now we're going to look at groups of chords, which we will call progressions. If you get several chords and you throw them in a bowl, there's a progression. In classical music theory, when you analyze groups of chords, they use a system of Roman numerals for diatonic triads. We're fixing to unpack that. Triads that are diatonic, meaning their notes are drawn from the major scale. Diatonic means of the major scale. So diatonic triads mean I'm creating a triad only using the notes from a given major scale. And they use this Roman numeral system. Sometimes this Roman numeral system has different things in classical theory, rules that are violated daily. So we kind of nod to the system and head towards the system that we're going to use and understand it. So take a glance at the bottom of page 69, C major scale, and note the scale degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But you can do this with any key, of course. We're just going to do it in C for the moment. Go on to the next page. Now let's look at the possible triads that we can create using only those notes. We're only using the pool of notes for C major scale for this right now. Okay? So at this stage in our learning, we only build chords in thirds. Okay, so you start with the first note, and then you're going to skip a note, because that would be a second, and take the next note, which is a third from that. Then you skip the following note and use the next note, which would be a fifth or a third above the prior one. Okay? So if we start on the first scale degree, and this is exactly how we built the major chord. So this ought to be real easy for everybody to understand. If we start on the first scale degree, and we take the note C, and we skip the next, and we take the note E, and we skip the next, and we take the note G, we call that a C major triad, 1, 3, and 5 of the major scale. We all understand that because we've been learning triads. This next part is where most people start breaking down. So if you don't understand the next thing I'm saying, please raise your hand. Next paragraph, if we then build a scale on the second scale degree, excuse me, let me say that again because I said a wrong word. If we build a chord, building it on the second scale degree, but only using notes from the major scale, we'll do it like this. What's the second scale degree of C? D. Skip the next note and take the next one. The next one would be F. We skip a note, take the next one, that would be A. That's the second, fourth, and sixth scale degree of C. But if you've been playing along at home and keeping track, this ought to initially look a little bit odd to you. Because if you just start looking at D and using the D major scale, then we would have gone D, F sharp, and A. But we're only using the notes from the C major scale. C major scale does not have an F sharp in it. It has an F natural. What kind of triad does this make? A minor, because there's a minor third between D and F, major third between F and A. This is a minor chord. Okay? So, using the major scale formula that we've all learned to love, repeat with me, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. If you stick to that scale formula, and every note that you pick, you start going down the path that we're on, you'll find that every key, the chord that's built in the first degree, I'll call the 1 chord, is always major. And the chord that's built on the second scale degree, which is called the 2 chord, is always going to be minor. And let's keep going. Let's build it on the third scale degree. What's the third scale degree of C? I'm going to see if Angel's got it, because I know it's getting late. If you're in C, what's the third scale degree? Third letter. It's okay. C, D, and E, 1, 2, and 3. The third scale degree of C would be E. Yeah? Okay. Now, using our little going up in thirds technique, we skip F and we grab G. We skip A and we grab B. This is the third, the fifth, and the seventh scale degree of C, but this chord is called an E minor chord. But if you pick any note and start with this, any scale, you'll find out that the chord built on the third scale degree of a major scale is always minor, every time. Okay? I would love to. If you pick any key other than C and start, you'll find the same formula ends up working. In that the chord built on the third scale degree of any major scale, using only the notes of the major scale, will always turn out to be minor in quality. Okay? Let's go to the next step. And now, if you're following along, we are on page 71. Now we're on the second grouping there. If we build on the fourth scale degree, the fourth degree of C is what? F. We take a note. We skip a note and take a note. Boom. Take a note, skip a note, take a note. F, A, C. This happens to be the fourth, sixth, and we've wrapped around to the first scale degree again, because B is number 7. We skip B, take the next one up as it wraps around. As you can see there on the second grouping of notes on 71, how we kind of did a wraparound deal. F, A, and C create a major triad, and we call it F major. Every single major scale anywhere, if you take the fourth scale degree, build a triad using only the notes of that scale, it will always be major every time. Only 3 left. Stay with me, cats and kittens. The fifth scale degree of C is G. Right answer. Okay. That's the fifth scale degree. Now we're going to wrap around again. We skip A and take B, because we're going in thirds. That's the 7th. After B is another C, but we're going to skip that and go to D, which is the 2, or the 9 for you music theory nerds. Okay? G, B, and D create a G major chord. In any key, you tired of me saying this yet? In any key that you pick, if you start at the 5th scale degree and only use the notes of that scale, and you create a triad, you will always create a major chord. In some, the 1's always major, 2 and the 3 are always minor, 4 and the 5 are always major. If you use only that scale, if you only use the major scale, it will happen every time. There's only 2 left. This next one is the last one on the page 71 at the bottom, starting on the 6th scale degree. 6th scale degree of C, C, D, E, F, G, A. 6th scale degree of C is A. Skipping B, wrapping around, getting C again. Skipping D, getting E. A, C, and E make what kind of chord? Minor. A minor chord. Same thing applies. If I'm only using the major scale, and I start with the 6th scale degree and I make a chord of it, it will always be minor every time. It won't be B minor, it will be A minor chord. Which is really tough when you're talking about all these letters, because the word B and the word A have a different meaning than the letters B and A, and cause quite a bit of confusion. Now, there's one left, because you know how many notes are in a major scale, right? 7 notes are in a major scale. We've just done 6 of them, but the 7th one brings a couple of other nuances to it. That's why I put it on the other page. The 7th scale degree is a little bit unique. Now, we're in the key of C still for our little exercise. 7th scale degree of C is B. We skip 1, and we go to the 2, which is D. We skip 3, and we go to the 4. Now, as we've been playing along in our triad lottery, that's not the right word, our game, as we've been learning our triads, we know that the B up to D is a minor third and D up to F is a minor third, and 2 minor thirds create a diminished chord. That little O is for our diminished symbol. Okay? Now, if you also remember something that was mentioned in Module 7 and a couple other places in our course, the 5th of a chord is 99% of music that you've ever heard is the 5th. Only 1% of the time do you hear a diminished chord or an augmented chord. It's rare. Okay? So this creates a diminished chord, and it's true. If you build a 7th scale degree major scale on any key, it will always come out diminished. And yet, because diminished is so rarely used, you don't really hear people talk about the 7 chord that often. But you do talk about the 3 chord and the 6 chord and the 2 and the 4, all 1 through 6 of this pattern that we're creating, this system that we're creating. So you don't hear the 7 chord diminished very often, but it does exist if someone says it. Does that make sense so far? Okay. Now, we can then summarize this whole concept on page 72 with my handy dandy little chart. The 1 chord of C major scale is the C major triad. Its notes composed of C, E, and G, and so on. Everybody see that chart there? These are the chords of the C major scale. You could insert another key, do the math with the formula, and you'll find everything will be the same except the letters. In other words, you'll find that the 1 chord is always major, 2 is always minor, 6 is always minor, so forth. The formula stays the same the entire way down.